As a creative aspect, TV is one of the best things that we do as a species. Along with music and film and books, they bring out the best creative of all of us. They entertain and they bring so much joy to many. They invoke emotion and enable us to feel things that we bury sometimes deep down. That's what this podcast is for. Welcome to A Million Little TV Shows. This is what I call the breakdown while I break down. Each week I will go through a different TV show, a different season of that TV show, and different episodes of that show. And I will break down not only emotions, but I will break down stories from my life, and let you know why these TV shows mean so much to me, and why I believe that they are some of the most important shows out there. This podcast is here to highlight a lot of smaller TV shows, or TV shows that don't really get a platform, because we know of a bunch of TV shows that get a multitude of different podcasts. Ted Lasso, Game of Thrones, The Office, they've all got several podcasts out there analysing all types of different things. But there's not many out there for the little guy, and that's what I'm trying to highlight. So each week I will go through a different show, different seasons, different episodes, and I will go across all different kinds of genres and different countries to bring you what I believe is some of the best TV out there. So I'm glad you're here with me. I'm glad you're here for this journey. And if you've watched the shows before and you wanted to come here and get an analysis on them and have someone go through them and pick out bits that you might have enjoyed, then I'm glad you are here. If, however, you have never watched the show and you just want to come and have someone talk in your ear about different TV shows, I'm glad you are here. But I hope that it inspires some people to go and seek out these TV shows. They deserve to be watched. They were made with love and care, and they are the same as this podcast, made with love and care. I am your host, Mike, and I will take you through every adventure, every horror, every piece of drama, and I hope that you enjoy the show. Hello there, and welcome back to this A Million Little TV Shows podcast. This is now episode 12 of season 13, and today we are entering into the back half of something very bad is going to happen, and this last stretch of the season where the mystery starts giving us answers. And the answers are somehow even more terrifying than the questions. But let's have a quick recap. Over the first 4 episodes, Rachel discovered that her wedding day wasn't just a wedding. It was the centre of a decades-old curse, a family tragedy, and a mystery that may have started even before she was born. We've seen warning from strangers, stories about the sorry man, cryptic prophecies, missing wedding dresses, family secrets, and a shocking revelation that the man everyone feared was actually Rachel's father. But now the countdown is almost over. The wedding day is approaching, the curse has revealed itself, and Rachel is beginning to question the one thing she held on to from the very beginning, whether Nikki is truly the person she wants to marry. So the next 4 episodes takes everything the show has been building and forces the characters to make impossible choices. These episodes are about truth, fate, sacrifice, and the terrifying possibility that love alone may not be enough to save you. So, as we always do, we'll break down each episode beat by beat, talk about the biggest reveals, explore the themes and the symbology, and look at how the show transforms from a mystery box into a full-blown tragedy. So, assuming that you've already watched these 4 episodes and you're ready to unpack everything that happened, let's get into the final days before the wedding, and the disaster we've been promised since the very first scene. So, this is something very bad is going to happen. Episodes 5 to 8. Episode 5, I Think You Just Saved My Life. So this episode is where the show takes all of the mythology, all the warnings, and all the uncertainty we've been collecting for the last 4 episodes and points directly at Rachel and Nikki's relationship. Up until now, the question has been, is the curse real? But I think after this particular episode, we've got to start wondering, are Nikki and Rachel actually soulmates? And that is a much more dangerous question. So we pick up just after Rachel learns about her family's curse, from both her father and the witness. Instead of panicking, Rachel reaches a surprising conclusion. She believes she's safe. And why? Well, because unlike her mother, she really believes she is marrying her soulmate. However, when she's questioned on this, she's not exactly 100%, but it's close enough that she's willing to move forward. And since she got drove back by Jules, who now knows more about this, he is horrified by the logic. Rachel says that she's about 92% sure. Jules immediately points out, if death is online, 92% certainty isn't exactly comforting. And you've got to wonder yourself, if someone told you that there was an 8% chance you'd die tomorrow, would you call those good odds? I mean, yes in some ways, but kind of depends on what we're talking about. When it comes to this curse, it is so uncertain that even someone having a 92% chance that they're in the right relationship, I wouldn't back that. But anyway, despite everything that's happening, the wedding machine keeps moving. The rehearsal dinner preparations continue, guests arrive, family members gather, everyone acts like the world isn't ending. The contrast is intentionally uncomfortable. Rachel has just learned about a generational death curse, yet she still has to sit through wedding festivities and polite conversation. And the wedding itself is starting to become a bit like one of the show's villains. It keeps moving forward no matter how many reasons there are to stop. And at the minute, it just feels like a train heading towards you. It's just going to keep coming, and nobody is applying the brakes. And then we get this rehearsal dinner, and it is brilliantly awkward, because guest after guest tells stories about marriage. Most of them are terrible, bad advice. Some relationship trauma that, well, they should be getting therapy for. And some stories that are meant to sound romantic but are just sound terrifying. Rachel is trapped listening to people explain why relationships survive despite resentment, sacrifice, and regret. And this episode kind of asks whether people know what soulmate is, or whether most people just settle and call it love. And I saw something the other day where it was basically talking about a soulmate and how some people who've fallen in love with someone down the road who think it's their soulmate, and then you've got to think there's 8 billion people in the world, and you found yours down the road. Are you really that lucky? I went halfway around the world to find mine, and even then, it wasn't in the country that she actually lived. So, you've got to wonder sometimes, are they just settling and calling it love? But also, listening to some of these stories, if what Rachel's curse is doing is going to happen, as in it's going to be pushed onto the other side of the family, well, all these stories that are coming out where you don't think the other person is their significant other, their soulmate, there could be a lot of bloodshed on their hands, and we know there is because we've seen it already. We just don't know who ends up sacrificed here. As for Victoria, she tells the story of how she met Boris, and like everything in this family is deeply strange. According to her, they met in an emergency room where she was getting a severed finger stitched back on. It's supposed to be a romantic origin story. Instead, it sounds like a horror movie meet cute. And the way that this particular show is, it's only this show that really could turn an emergency room injury into a love story. But it does it. It's effective, but we don't know what it means really. And then we get Rachel's story, because everyone puts her on the spot about her own story and how she met Nikki. And so Rachel tells the now famous story. Years earlier, she was preparing to board a flight. Suddenly, she became convinced the plane was going to crash. She refused to get on it. Nikki approached her. Instead of flying, he offered to drive her. And before they parted ways, he told her, "I think you just saved my life." And this is where the episode title comes from, but it comes back in a moment later. And so, where that feels like a very fateful moment, is it fate? Or is it just a coincidence? I suppose if the wedding goes ahead, we're going to find out. But because Jules knows of what's going to happen, he just can't leave it alone. He knows that the curse is coming, and he is now convinced of it. He doesn't want to see any bloodshed. He certainly doesn't want to see Rachel die, but he doesn't want to see his family die either. And so he becomes obsessed with proving whether Rachel and Nikki are actually soulmates. And he starts examining the story, looking for inconsistencies, and he eventually finds one. Something Nikki's version of events doesn't line up with. And that's the details surrounding the original airport encounter aren't exactly straightforward, and are certainly not as straightforward as Rachel believes. And so Jules isn't trying to ruin the wedding anymore, he thinks he's trying to save Rachel's life. And this is where that line comes back again, just with a twist. It's not, "I think you just saved my life," it's, "I think I just saved your life." So then the foundations start to crack, and the episode becomes emotionally devastating. For the first time, Rachel begins to question the story. She has built her entire relationship around it. If their first meeting wasn't destiny, If Nikki wasn't completely truthful, then maybe the certainty she's been clinging to isn't real. The curse suddenly feels much closer, and it is weaponizing her doubt. And if it's weaponizing her doubt, then it's weaponizing the doubt that the wedding is going to happen at all. And this tension plays out later on in the evening, and it finally explodes during the dinner. Rachel stops playing along, she stops pretending, she stops protecting everyone. She openly tells the assembled guests about the curse. Not part of it, all of it. The room falls silent. It's one of the most shocking moments of the season because Rachel is finally done keeping secrets. And this is the first time that everybody is forced to listen to Rachel's story instead of everyone else forcing their stories upon her. Episode 6, Last Night of Freedom. And it feels like episode 6 is the calm before the storm. Or at least that's what it's pretending to be. We're one day away from the wedding, and Rachel has reached the point where she can no longer trust her relationship, her history, or even the rules of the curse itself. And so this episode is all about investigation. And in some places it feels about desperation. But most importantly, it's about Rachel trying to find proof before she has to make the biggest decision of her life. And so we pick up immediately after the chaos of the rehearsal dinner. Rachel wakes Nell in the middle of the night and asks for a favour. No questions, no explanations, just trust me. Meanwhile, Nikki wakes up to discover Rachel is gone, her engagement ring has been left behind, and the warning letter from episode 1 has changed. The word not has been crossed out, the message now effectively reads, marry him. So someone or something is rewriting the rules. One of the creepiest things about the entire series is how the warnings keep evolving. It's almost like the curse itself is responding to Rachel's choices. And so, what are Rachel and Nell doing? They decide that they need evidence. Not folklore, not stories, evidence. And so they break into a local records office and start digging through generations of Rachel's family's documents. Marriage certificates, birth certificates, death certificates, anything connected with this curse. This is Rachel finally acting like an investigator instead of a victim. And what they find is something huge. Every marriage certificate in the family history contains the exact same witness signature, the same name, generation after generation, decades apart, sometimes more than a century apart. The implication is terrifying. The witness isn't a title, it's a person, or something that has existed far longer than it should. And so the show was teased for 5 episodes, making us wonder whether the witness was important. It turns out in episode 6 that it confirms he is the centre of everything. Essentially, Rachel has to relay the story to Nell about what happened. She tells her that, well, when she met this man, he told her that he had backed out of his own wedding and now he was cursed with the fact that he had to watch all of Rachel's bloodline have this curse thrust upon them. And that was his cross to bear. But throughout, Nell keeps reminding Rachel about their bachelor party. Although throughout all of this, Nell keeps reminding Rachel about the bachelorette party. And so Rachel wants answers. She knows that at this bachelorette party they could play games. And Rachel's found something that she needs answers for. She finds a document of a woman who managed to break the curse. And so now she just wants to find out what the hell happened. But of course, this woman's already dead. So she tells Nell that she is going to speak to this woman come hell or high water. And this is where the bachelorette party could actually be a benefit. Because once Nell and Rachel return to the lodge, the tonal whiplash is incredible. Because at first we're just expecting a normal bachelorette, and then the next thing they're playing with fire. Or in this case, a Ouija board. Portia helps them out with this and she is happy too. Because basically she says this is right up her street. However, while they're doing it, nothing really happens. Nikki, however, has stayed at the lodge. He's unravelling because his wife has disappeared, and this is confirming his worst fears. She is slipping away. And for the first time, he starts confronting the possibility that love might not be enough. And we see how his frustration starts to grow with family members, hiding information, and treating the wedding like an emergency rather than a celebration. So what we end up seeing from Nikki is the fact that he and his family go off into the woods, and his father tells him a story about his mother. And it turns out that his mother, many moons ago, had cheated on her husband. And this throws Nicky off, because Nicky has always thought highly of his mother and his father, to the point where he was essentially modelling how his life was going to be through how their relationship was. And now he's found out that this 30-year marriage isn't as perfect as he thought. He really does start to spiral. But as Nicky is spiraling, things between Rachel and Nell seem to be going the opposite direction. While they were searching for the documents, Nell tells Rachel that her and Jules are going to be getting a divorce. And we see that the emotional tension that's been building all season reaches a breaking point. The two end up sharing a kiss. Maybe because they're scared, maybe because they're attracted to each other, maybe Rachel desperately wants an alternative future. Whatever the reason, it complicates everything. Because Nell represents uncertainty, but she also represents a freedom. Every scene between the two of them forces Rachel to imagine a life beyond her wedding. But just as soon as things start between the two of them, things end between the two of them as well. Because Portia, throughout this seance, throughout this Ouija boarding, I don't know what to call it, has ended up getting possessed. And so while Nell and Rachel are kissing, Portia enters the room. And this time something is deeply wrong. Portia appears blooded and disorientated. It's almost as if she's channeling someone else's voice, almost as if she's become a vessel. She grabs Rachel by the hair, and she forces Rachel away from Nell. And then the spirit that is possessing Portia relays a phrase to Rachel. Something living, something dead, something stolen, something red. It's very similar to the something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue. But this time, it doesn't sound like a warning, it sounds like instructions. The rhyme suddenly feels like a ritual recipe, a list of ingredients, a way to possibly survive what comes next. And so we've waited for something all along. And finally, Rachel might have a way out. Because for the first time, it seems like she is learning about the curse. She found her relative who had managed to survive this, and it seems whatever they did was to do with this rhyme. And now, technically, she may not have to die and she may not have to pass on the curse. But now she has to find out what exactly this is, and the clock is officially running out of time. Episode 7. Something living, something dead, something stolen, something red. And I think there's only one way to talk about this episode, and that is that it is pure panic. We see that the show has been counting down to the wedding so far, and now they're less than an hour away. And everybody is under the assumption that someone is going to die if they make the wrong choice. This is the episode where the prophecy starts becoming a plan, the family starts coming apart, and Rachel has to decide whether she believes in love, fate, or survival. And we open with the wedding preparations in full swing. Normally this would be the happiest part of the wedding. Instead, everyone is terrified. After her argument with Nicky, Victoria has ended up unconscious. And now, an hour before the wedding, the family are split over whether the ceremony should even happen. Portia wants the wedding cancelled immediately, arguing that everything has gone too far. But Nicky refuses to walk away. And now, in the final hour, this wedding, this countdown has started to feel suffocating. Every minute that passes feels more and more dangerous, more trepidation. But throughout this whole season, Rachel has been reacting to this curse, and now she's finally acting. Using Portia's prophecy, something living, something dead, something stolen, something red, Rachel starts gathering the items she believes that are necessary to break the cycle. And for the first time, she isn't trying to understand the curse, she's trying to beat it. And instead of your usual horror protagonist, they usually survive by escaping, whereas Rachel is trying something much harder. She's trying to rewrite the rules. So we find out what each of these items has to be. Something living is something from the groom, something dead is something from the bride, something stolen is from the mother-in-law, and something red is from an enemy. And so Portia's not sure what these items are going to be yet, but she knows she has to get them pretty fucking quick. But as the preparations continue, long-buried tensions erupt. Victoria's condition forces everyone to confront the uncomfortable truth. Family members disagree about what matters more, saving Victoria, saving Rachel, saving Nicky, or simply saving the day. and the closer the wedding gets, the less united the Cunningham household becomes. But we see Rachel turn to several people to get these items. So she's told by Jude that he has lost their rings. She's frantically looking for them, and she is confronted by the witness. It's here while he is being smug about the day, and Rachel is telling him that I'm not going to die today, so you're not going to get your victory. She ends up smashing a glass, and it cuts his hand. She then takes the shard of glass with his blood on it and runs. At least that's one down. She now has something red from an enemy. She then decides to go and see Victoria. Since Victoria is unconscious, that is probably the next best step. She catches her alone because Boris isn't there, and she manages to cut off a clump of her hair. And so that is the something stolen. The something living and the something dead are going to be two very interesting prospects, though. So far, she's not had to do a lot. The something dead comes because she has to consume a bone of her own. And so she speaks to Nell and Jules and gets them to help her with some surgery. Jules is a doctor after all, and he can only do his best to try and help her out here. So what he does is he ends up cutting off one of her pinky toes. Not exactly ideal, but, well, it's the thing that's not going to show the most, especially on her wedding day when she's going to be wearing white. And so now there is one thing left. She has the something dead. She has to go and visit her husband on their wedding day. Of course, all the superstition around seeing a bride on their wedding day isn't exactly what they need right now. She goes to him and she seduces him. They end up sleeping together, and once he comes inside her, she scoops it up and manages to take that as is something living. And so she now has the ingredients for a concoction. But during all of this, Nikki and Rachel have one of the most important conversations of the season. Rachel admits the truth. She tells him about Nell, she tells him of her uncertainty, and she tells him that she's scared. She no longer knows what she believes. But Nikki tells her that he already knows. Jules told him because Jules and Nell never have any secrets from each other. But instead of exploding, he does something unexpected. He believes her. He even admits he believes the curse is real. And this is the first time that he's done anything that really acknowledges what she's been going through. And even though there is a reason to leave staring him right in the face, that, well, his wife could die if he goes through with this. But on the flip side, if she doesn't go through with this, his family will be at risk. But nothing says that he can't back out of this. So even though everything is staring him in the face, he never stops loving Rachel. But now everything is in place. Rachel has all the ingredients that she needs, but the problem is she's had to run around for the last hour, and now the time is upon her. Victoria manages to wake up, and she is ready to be at the side of her son for his wedding day. And now the wedding is unavoidable. At this point, everybody understands the same thing. There is no more time. The curse, the witness, the prophecy, Rachel's doubts, Victoria's illness, everything has converged on a single event, the ceremony. No more investigations, no more delays. The wedding is happening. The entire season has been a countdown, and this is the moment that the timer hits 0. Episode 8, I Do. Well, here we are. 8 episodes, 5 days, 1 wedding. And from the very first scene of the series, we were promised something very bad was going to happen. Episode 8 finally delivers on that promise, and then somehow finds a way to make the ending even sadder and stranger and more devastating than expected. The finale isn't really about a curse, it's about a choice. It's about a certainty. And ultimately, it's about whether love is enough when two people fundamentally differ on things. But what I've got to say about this is it's possibly one of the best episodes of TV that I've watched. And for a show that kind of came out of nowhere, didn't really hear much about, this is amazing. Such an amazing show. But very much like Rachel, let's get down the aisle. So we begin exactly where the show began. Rachel walks down the aisle towards Nikki. And it's the same wedding we've been flashing forward to all season. And the same moment we've been dreading. Rachel has made her decision. She's chose not to use the ritual potion that she concocted in episode 7, and instead has decided to put her faith in Nikki. She believes that he is already her soulmate, and if the curse is real, she's betting her life on this relationship. And so the biggest gamble in the entire series isn't magic, it isn't something supernatural, it's trust. The family gathers, Boris officiates, and the witness watches on from the sidelines. And for a few minutes, everything feels almost normal. After 7 episodes of horror, the wedding briefly resembles the celebration it's supposed to be. We as the audience are waiting for the disaster because we have been conditioned to expect it. And it feels like the calm in the episode is the most terrifying bit because we know it can't last. And again, it feels like after all these swerves and all these forks in the road, we finally get one more. Because Nikki ends up getting cold feet. Because at the exact moment that they should come together, Nikki hesitates. Now in the last episode, he was telling Rachel how much he believed her. He believed in this curse. And now once again, it seems like he is seeing it as all in her own head. But the revelations about his parents' marriage and Victoria's affair and the collapse of the romantic worldview he has have finally caught up with him. And so instead of saying yes, Nikki just walks away. So for most of the season, Rachel has been the one questioning the relationship. But now the finale flips on its head. So of course, Rachel's fuming. She's thrown all her trust into this. She's thrown everything at it. She hasn't took this serum or whatever it is. And now Nikki's walked away. And this is one of the most painful scenes. Because Rachel chose him. After everything, the curse, the warnings, Nell, her father, the witness, she was finally committed to Nikki. And it ends up being him who is the one who walks away from it all. And sometimes the most devastating horror isn't supernatural, it's an emotional timing. So, of course, the ceremony collapses. Everyone basically goes about their own thing. They're all waiting around, hoping that people will come to their senses. And Rachel and Nikki go through to another room, and they finally stop lying to each other. They confront everything. Their doubts, their fears, their different visions of love, and their uncertainty about being soulmates. And the argument is one of the more brutal scenes of the whole show. They literally lay it out on each other and they're yelling things back and forth. And by the time they're finished, you are looking at them going, there's no good to come of this. It's a broken relationship. But the conversation forces them both to admit what they've been avoiding all season. The curse didn't create their problems, it just exposed them. But of course, all the family cares about now is this curse. They know that sundown is coming, and as soon as sunset arrives, that's it. This curse will then pass over into Nikki's family. And one of my favourite parts of this is just a little nod to Rachel. She's literally yelling throughout the series that once she finds out about the curse, this will pass on to their bloodline. She tells them multiple times, and yet it's only here that they really understand. When she tells Nikki that this will pass on to your bloodline, he's kind of like, what? And then Boris says it not 2 minutes later, and the look on Rachel's face of, for fuck's sake, is just perfect. But then the clock runs out. The sun begins to set, the deadline passes. Rachel and Nikki are not married, and the curse finally activates. And much like her mother, it's not tomorrow, it's not later, it is immediate. And so after 8 episodes of building tension around this deadline, the moment finally arrives, and it is worse than anyone expected. And it is an incredible scene. I probably haven't seen a scene this good since probably the Red Wedding in Game of Thrones. But this is the moment. The opening scene has been teased since episode 1. And one by one, members of the Cunningham family begin hemorrhaging. Blood pouring from their eyes, their noses. People collapse across the wedding venue. Panic erupts. Screams fill the room. And the curse has been transferred into the Cunningham bloodline. And essentially, every member of the partnership who is on the Cunningham bloodline, who isn't with their significant other, their soulmate, now dies. And probably the saddest image of all this devastation, all this death, is Jules' son Jude, hiding beneath the table while adults around him die. Jules rushes to protect him, he shields him from it, and he takes him to another room. But it's a reminder that the curse isn't just killing people, it's creating trauma that will echo into generations. The real horror of the family curse is that they never stop with just one generation. Through all of this, Nikki begins to realise what's happening, and he starts pleading with Rachel. And this is the emotional climax of the series. Rachel understands something Nikki doesn't. The issue isn't paperwork, the issue isn't the ceremony. The issue is belief. She no longer truly believes that they are soulmates. And for the first time in the season, she chooses herself. And it's one of the best moments of this show. Because the gravitas behind it, you know what's coming. We've already seen Victoria start bleeding from her eyes. And when Nikki asks Rachel, please can we do this? Let's just get back out there and let's finish the ceremony. And she says no. It is brutal, but also justified. Very justified. Because all along she has been the one person that said this can work, that they can do this. He doubted her the whole way, right up until this point. But now he realises what's happening. And so in his desperation, he makes one final attempt to save everyone. He ends up rushing back to Rachel, and he puts the ring on her finger, and his dad says the words. He tells her, I do, and that's it. He thinks that this can all just go away now. The witness signs, the vows are complete, the ceremony is done, but it is too late. However, because of this, well, now he's condemned Rachel. She no longer believes that he is the person that she wants to marry. He is not her soulmate. And so she ends up dying as well. Rachel steps outside, and it's heartbreakingly beautiful, this scene. She is covered in blood in her wedding dress, and she walks out into this small, tiny garden in the middle of the house. It's a weird setup, but the snow is falling. She dies, she falls to the floor, and the blood flows away from her. The noise of the wedding fades away, and then, just like her mother, the curse claims her. And for a brief moment it appears that the story ended exactly as the curse intended. And as I said, it is the most tragic moment. But what comes next is we see the curse going around the room, and it focuses on the witness. It seems like whatever this thing is, it always manages to talk to him. And then he says, oh, it's my time. The next morning, the witness is sat, just eating some cake, and he ends up dying. And as he does, Rachel awakens, alive, changed. The previous witness is gone, and it seems like Rachel has now inherited the role. The curse hasn't killed her, it's transformed her. The ending turns Rachel from victim into guardian. And then we see a scene between Jules, Nell, and Jude. They know that now Jude has this curse. Whoever he marries has to be the right person, otherwise he's going to die. However, when Nell asks, how come you're still around? How come this didn't affect you? And he doesn't say it as much. You just see the look across her face as she realises what just came out of her mouth. Turns out, even though they've got problems, they've had problems, they are soulmates. In the final scenes, Rachel encounters Jude and tells him something chilling. She'll be there when it's his turn. The cycle continues, the role continues, the responsibility continues. Rachel is now part of the mythology she spent the entire season trying to understand. And so the greatest horror isn't death, it's becoming part of the thing that haunted you. Okay, so this show was really good. I fucking enjoyed it so much. And as soon as I watched it, I put it in the folder that basically said, this is going to be covered on the podcast at some point in the future. And part of me is now really glad that the issue that I had could be solved by this show, because I really wanted to watch it again. Because it was one of the most emotionally devastating horror stories I've seen in a long time. When we started the journey, it looked like a mystery. A nervous bride receives a warning that her wedding day will end in tragedy. Simple enough, right? But by the time we ended up reaching these episodes 5 to 8, the show revealed that the real mystery was never the curse. The real mystery was Rachel. Her fears, her choices, and her ability to tell the difference between loving someone and knowing they're the right person. That's what makes the back half of this season so powerful. These last 4 episodes stop focusing on what the curse is and starts focusing on what it all means. Because every supernatural element in the story mirrors something painfully human. The curse isn't really about magic, it's about certainty. The witness isn't really about immortality, it's about experience. And the wedding really isn't about marriage, it's about commitment, about choosing a future and living with the consequences. Throughout the season, Rachel keeps looking for someone else to give her the answer. Whether that's the Cunningham family, her father, the witness, Portia's prophecies, the rituals, the signs, the warnings, old family. But in the end, none of them can make the decision for her. The only person who can answer the question is Nikki the One, is Rachel, and that's the tragedy, because there is no spell that can tell you that. No prophecy, no witness, and certainly no family secret. You have to know for yourself, and if you don't know, that's an answer too. And what I loved about the finale is it refuses to give you a traditional happy ending. Rachel doesn't ride off into the sunset. The wedding doesn't save everyone. The curse isn't defeated. People do die. Families are shattered. Lives are changed forever. And somehow the ending still feels hopeful. Because Rachel has finally stopped living according to everyone else's expectations. For the first time all season, she trusts herself. And that choice transforms her from being a person haunted into the person who understands the haunting. The final reveal that Rachel becomes the new witness is possibly one of the smartest twists in the season, because it recontextualizes everything we've seen. The witness was never the villain, never a hero, never a puppet master. He's a guide, someone who appears when people stand at a crossroads between destiny and choice. And now Rachel carries that responsibility. Looking back at the season as a whole, I think the biggest theme is simple. Love is not certainty. You can love someone deeply and still know they aren't your future. You can want something desperately and still walk away. And sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is tell the truth when every part of their life depends on a lie. And that's Rachel's journey. Not surviving a curse, not escaping a monster, learning to trust herself. The horror gave us blood, prophecies, curse, ghosts, rituals, and family secrets. But the heart of the story was always a woman trying to answer one impossible question before it's too late. And so at the end of the series, we're left with one final image. Rachel standing where the witness once stood, no longer searching for answers, now responsible for helping others find their own. And maybe that's what the series was telling us all along. The scariest moments in life aren't when the monsters come looking for us. They're the moments when we have to choose the future without knowing if we're right. But on that note, I'm done. I really enjoyed this. Please like, share, subscribe, comment. Tell me what you think of the show, because I think it's possibly one of the best shows I've watched in a long time. And I say that a lot on this podcast. But, I mean, this could possibly be it. I was so impressed with it. The cast are people I very rarely knew. Jennifer Jason Leigh was probably the most famous person in it. And yet, I would watch anything with any of them in it now, because I thought they were excellent. The script seemed amazing, and the cinematography and the sound design was just excellent. So, like I say, I'm done. There's no more to say about this show. Just, if you haven't watched it, go watch it. If you have watched it, watch it again. But until next time, I'm done for today. So, thank you all for listening. Hope you're all doing well out there. But until next time, I will speak to you soon. Bye. As always, thank you for listening to this podcast, and you could really help me and the podcast by giving a like, share, subscribe on all major platforms that you listen to podcasts on. As an independent podcaster, this will just help me exponentially when it comes to actually doing more things with this podcast. I truly do enjoy this, and I absolutely love revisiting these TV shows with you guys. So any engagement from you is always welcome. And I will try and listen to all of you when you give suggestions or just tell me what you think about the podcast. But once again, thank you for listening, and until next time, I will speak to you soon. Bye.